the politicization of another hurricane. Researchers say human life expectancy won't grow much, and the one-year anniversary of the October 7th massacre. I'm glad things have calmed down since then, right? And more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. The Wall Street Journal reports that Spirit Airlines is exploring filing for bankruptcy. This news caused Spirit's stock to plummet in what is another major blow to the airline after a proposed $3.8 billion merger with JetBlue was canceled earlier this year. What? Spirit Airlines is struggling financially? That's shocking. I always assumed hitting customers with hidden charges for everything from carry-on luggage to tap water while operating jets that look like aerodynamic bananas and spending decades amassing a reputation as the Greyhound bus of the skies would have done wonders for business. As you can tell, this story's a little personal for me. If this truly is the beginning of the end for Spirit, I can think of no better way to honor them than by planning a funeral where the guests are charged $70 if they want to choose their own seats. Hurricane Milton barreled towards Florida's west coast as a massive Category 5 storm, making landfall at Category 3. Meteorologists were at a loss for words to describe how quickly the storm intensified. Milton intensified so quickly it got researchers wondering if it might be time to create a new Category 6 tier for future storms. You know a hurricane is powerful when meteorologists go full Vegeta and say, "It's over 5." Of course, the one bright spot of seeing Mother Nature's terrifying wrath and the carnage it unleashed on our fellow man was that it united everyone and brought politicians from both sides together, even in the face of an election that's less than 4 weeks away. I'm just kidding. It was just an excuse to play politics even harder. Apparently, we've learned nothing from the past. And by past, I mean 2 weeks ago, when the South was devastated by Hurricane Helene. I did a whole story about how the disaster response has been politicized. Link below. So, how have things been politicized since then? Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis reportedly refused to take calls from Vice President Kamala Harris following Hurricane Helene, saying that she has no role in hurricane response and that he doesn't have time for political games. Which sounds a bit harsh, but to be fair, even if Harris did have a role in hurricane response, if she handled it as well as she handled her role as border czar, then a record number of storms would get into the country, causing chaos, while the left pretended for years that there wasn't a crisis at all. So DeSantis accused Harris of playing political games, while Harris accused DeSantis of being selfish by not taking her calls, especially with Milton on the way, basically saying, "Nuh-uh, you're the one playing political games." But DeSantis has been taking calls from the White House. President Biden, I know, he's still president. Crazy, right? I forgot too. He actually praised DeSantis.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call.
Oh boy, does this mean Biden will get DeSantis' private number? Considering Biden's age, I hope Ron is ready to get a lot of accidental old man butt dials. Meanwhile, DeSantis pushed back against Harris's pushback, calling Harris delusional.
For Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this.
Remember the good old days when you could watch Independence Day and believe that a common threat would be enough to unite humanity? Now we all know if space aliens invade and try to take over, Democrats and Republicans will be too busy trying to make each other look bad to try and get votes, even though democracy is dead and we're all under the mind control of our new slimy telepathic overlords. I'm so tired of everything being overly politicized. Let's talk about someone who never generates any controversy whatsoever. Donald Trump. Trump says if he's elected president, he would impose tariffs as high as 200% on vehicles imported from Mexico in an attempt to help domestic automakers. The idea was especially pointed at John Deere, which announced in June that it plans on moving some of its manufacturing to Mexico, which is terrible. That they won't be releasing those vehicles under a new model, Juan Deere. Businessman and former shark Mark Cuban called this tariff idea insanity, saying it would be a good way to destroy a legendary American company. Cuban pointed out that this proposed tariff is higher than ones imposed on China, which would make it harder for John Deere to compete. So essentially, Cuban is saying that punishing John Deere for building in Mexico is a bad move because it would cause more vehicles from China to come into the country. And as for American auto workers, good luck. Well, if Trump is elected president and John Deere does go out of business, they could always try to secure more funding by pitching their business plan on Shark Tank. Or if that doesn't work, try convincing them you have a smoothie maker that doesn't make any noise or something. I'm sure they'll go for it. Or, crazy idea, you could manufacture in America. But what do I know? Speaking of things entering America through the southern border, a survey by Reuters shows that 500,000 school-aged children who've arrived to the U.S. since 2022 are causing issues for school budgets and classrooms as teachers struggle with the language barrier. Not speaking the same language is easily the second biggest challenge for teachers in terms of reaching their students. Of course, the number one challenge is, was, and always will be that school is lame. Forget the language barrier. What about the cool barrier? Inspiring movies about teachers reaching students in the inner city aren't inspiring because they save them from a life of crime. They're inspiring because they somehow tricked them into caring about math when they could be playing Nintendo instead. And after the break, Mark Zuckerberg versus Jeff Bezos. Welcome back. According to Forbes, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has become the world's third richest person, overtaking Amazon chairman Jeff Bezos, which is a surprise that this reptilian android is considered a person. Zuckerberg and Bezos trail behind Tesla and ex-CEO Elon Musk and software company Oracle's co-founder Larry Ellison. Collectively, the four are worth over $875 billion. Meanwhile, for lunch today, I ate tuna straight out of the can with my fingers over a sink. So, good for them. They don't have to worry about shrinkflation, which incidentally Senator Elizabeth Warren and Congresswoman Madeleine Dean have demanded companies stop doing. And I'm sure they will. Because as we all know, once corporations learn consumers will pay the same price for less of a product, they'll happily give them more as a thanks for their loyalty at the cost of their own profits. Corporations are the best. Bloomberg's billionaire ranking is slightly different, ranking Zuckerberg now as the second richest person / reptilian android in the world and Bezos as the third, while Ellison is the fifth. I bet it must be terrible to be so rich, people literally can't keep track of all your money. That sounds like the worst. Actually, the worst is being so rich, you're being richer than someone else makes the news. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss the good old days of a year ago when stories about Billionaire Rivals involved cage matches. But we should all be more grateful about what we have and focus less on what we don't have. After all, we're all going to die sooner than you think. Because researchers say that human life expectancy won't grow much more. They say that better public health, medicine, and diet led to dramatic increases in life expectancy in the past, but modern medicine is only artificially preserving older people for so long, and the chances of living to 100 are still low for most people. Meaning, it's now been scientifically proven we're here for a good time, not a long time. But considering we've seen multiple hurricanes that are so devastating that they're making parts of Florida look like parts of San Francisco, and the planet's seemingly on the brink of World War III, it might actually be optimistic of scientists to say human life expectancy just plateaued instead of outright plummeting. Of course, we shouldn't focus on the length of life, but the quality of life. And making sure that our senior citizens are healthy, happy, and safe. From Andrew Cuomo, who's still out there roaming the streets with no criminal indictments for his handling of COVID. I'm starting to think I'll be 100 before that happens. Monday was the one-year anniversary of Hamas's slaughter of Israeli citizens, leaving over 1,200 dead and over 100 hostages still in captivity to this day. President Biden and thousands of others held vigils to commemorate the date. And what would be the most respectful way to commemorate this grim anniversary? Why, another fresh round of pro-Palestinian protests, of course. But don't worry, I'm sure none of them were calling Hamas, labeled a terrorist organization by many Western nations, martyrs, or anything like that.
All our fathers, sons and daughters! All our fathers, sons and daughters! We will honor all our martyrs! We will honor all our martyrs!
I'd say I'm disappointed, but I'd have to be surprised to be disappointed. You'd think they could just take this day off, this one day, or tone down the rhetoric to maybe try and show they only support the safety of Palestinians and not the murder of Israelis? But I guess it'd be harder to make that chant rhyme. We understand Israel's understandably irate, but try to keep innocent Palestinians safe. Yeah, not many folks are going to be able to repeat that one. After a year, the division has gotten worse. I'd hope at some point everyone could realize the situation shouldn't be seen through the lens of oppressor versus oppressed or good guy versus bad guy, and just a terrible situation where the only side worth rooting for are the victims and civilians, whether they're Israeli or Palestinian. But we haven't, because that's even harder to chant. Oppressor versus oppressed isn't best. Civilians are... never mind. Heck, we're so divided, we're now fighting over hurricanes. If Americans, nay, humanity, can't get their act together, then we might just crash and burn sooner than our plateaued life expectancy, even harder than Spirit Airlines. Do you like a dash of philosophy to help get you through this terrifying existence? And do you like it combined with video games to make it more fun? Of course you do. So here's a video from our other channel, Gamers Unbeaten, I know you'll love. And the algorithm knows too. The algorithm knows everything about you. Even that, especially that. And America Uncovered wouldn't exist without your support. Click that orange button to support the show on Patreon. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.